Hello, everyone. Ryan Rodriguez back on another episode of Cal Maritime's Career Services Connecting Keelhaulers show. Today, we are joined by Darlene Conolly, a licensed track mechanical engineer graduate from the class of 2018. Darlene, thanks for taking some time out of what I just learned is your pretty busy schedule to speak with us today.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for, making it work with my rescheduling and my trying to cancel today.
No, I kept you to the plan, but no worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to introduce Darlene a little bit more, she currently works as a mechanical engineer at Amber Kinetics in Union City, where she's been since May 2019. Prior to enrolling at Cal Maritime, Darlene received her Bachelor of Arts in Literary Journalism from UC Irvine and held a variety of jobs, most notably as a writer and editor for the publication Surfline. So I think, Darlene, that'd kind of be just the place to start. Tell us a little bit about your background and your profession, what you're doing now, and some news to share.
Okay. So yeah, my background, like you said, was in journalism and working as an editor at Surfline. I jumped straight into that directly out of high school. I was pretty interested in writing at that time and surfing. So that was my main focus was actually surfing, and then writing was a means to an end. So, I was able to combine those into a single, career, and it was, a really awesome, fun career. I got to travel all over the world as an editor for a surf publication and meet, tons of pro surfers and basically, surf the world's best waves in some of the most exotic locations. So that was nothing to complain about. And it was an awesome thing to be doing when I was in my early 20s. And yet, it is the surf industry and it is a great lifestyle, but it's, kind of notoriously known for not being the most lucrative field because, it's the revenues are based on, ad sales when you're working
constant hustling
at a publication. Yeah. So I was looking for something different, something to, better support myself as I got older. I wasn't really making a whole lot of money. And I also kind of just hadn't done anything else with my life other than surf and work in the surf industry. So I wanted to try and challenge myself a little bit and see, there's obviously so much outside of surfing in this world. So I really wanted to test some boundaries in what I was capable of and explore the world a little more in a outside of surfing. So I started, kind of traveling on my own, taking random gigs, to sustain myself and my traveling, and was also studying and taking classes at community college at the same time. And I literally was just taking everything. And I eventually ended up getting into the idea of going to a master's program for social welfare because I really like working with people and just interacting face to face with other human beings and helping people, supporting them. And so, that I thought that was like a good path forward for myself because it didn't require math. And
look where you are now.
Yeah, so I wasn't good at math. That's the real background of why I went with writing was because I could write, I barely, got all C's in all my math classes in high school, and my one math class, college algebra class in my when I was doing my journalism degree. And yet the application process for master's programs almost always require you to take the GED exam, which half of is math. It's basic math. It's pretty simple, but I was terrified. And so I started studying heavily on my own for that. And I ended up finding that when I sat down and taught myself math instead of sitting in a classroom learning it, I actually excelled at it. And once everything made sense, it all clicked. It was the wildest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It was to just suddenly realize that I really could do math and I really enjoyed it. And it was addicting, actually. I got really sucked in and took every math class at community college that I could take. And then was like, all right, now that I can do math, I can do whatever degree program I want. I don't have to be constrained to something that is free of math. So I ended up looking into engineering. And in particular, that led me to looking at colleges, where to apply. And because I already had a bachelor's degree, it's actually quite difficult to get into a university to apply for a second bachelor's degree, a post-baccalaureate program. And Cal Maritime came up in my search as one of the only universities in all of California, which has a lot of universities between the UC system and the CSU system. And there were only 3 schools that I was eligible to apply to out of those 2 systems. And Cal Maritime was my top pick. I had a friend who was going there, and he actually transferred from UCSD to go do the deck program. And he loved it. And so I decided to apply, and I thought that was a great way to incorporate my new skill of with my love for the ocean. So that was why I chose a mechanical engineering program, and also wanted to do the license track. So.
Nice. Good story. I was curious to see how you changed, and then you said, I'm not good at math. I'm like, okay, how did this even end up happening to where she's an engineer? But I think that's a great example of, as we get older, we try new things that we thought we were bad at, or like you said, it was a certain learning environment that wasn't conducive for you, and once you change that up, it just opened a whole new world. So that's definitely pretty cool. So then, coming back to Cal Maritime, how did your mindset just towards school differ compared to your first degree when you were much younger? What skills and experiences in that gap in schooling helped you succeed at Cal Maritime? And then what was difficult transitioning back into kind of a full-time school realm, especially at a place like here, which is even more intensive than most programs?
Yes, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing the dual track with the license and mechanical programs.
Yep.
Yeah. It was at least 20 units every semester for me, which is unspeakable at most universities. So, when I first got to Cal Maritime, it was definitely a big change for me. I'd never worn a uniform in my life. And I came from the surf industry where everything's very casual and you just call people by their first name. And I definitely learned my lesson very rapidly during orientation week. In fact, that, there is a level of hierarchy and order to Cal Maritime. And that was definitely eye-opening for me. But being older and having already, been to school and experienced quite a few things in my life, professionally and personally, like it definitely wasn't as hard for me as it would have been if I was much younger. I respected that kind of, I guess, bit of conformity that the school requires, because when you're going on ships, you can't have people doing whatever they want. Like it's inherently a dangerous place to be at sea. And so there's reasons for some organization on a ship, and that obviously reflects onto the campus as well. So I understood that and quickly adjusted my approach towards everything. Fortunately, I actually did live off campus, which was, because I was older. So that actually allowed me to keep, quite a bit of normalcy in my life. Compared to maybe if I had to live on campus for my entire time there. So yeah, I respect that it can be very tough for, someone, especially coming straight out of high school, going, straight to Cal Maritime and having to live on campus immediately. And that's a big change. And, I respected and really appreciated the amount of, dedication that took from my classmates who were younger in that situation. So yeah, I was really fortunate, I think. But anyway, yeah, I was already, like I said, studying a lot prior to coming to Cal Maritime. So that aspect wasn't a huge change, but the course load itself was pretty wild. Just having to be in class so many hours a week left very little time for me to actually get like my assignments done. And study and everything. So it was anyone who knows me while I was at Cal Maritime will attest to the fact that school was my entire life. That was it. I really was fortunate to not have to work at that time. I'd saved up money for my tuition, and living was relatively cheap in Vallejo. So, I was able to not work while I was in school. So I was also very fortunate in that sense.
Nice. Yeah, no, it is. You guys are busy. I talk to the students all the time. I'm like, I think back to when I was in undergrad, and I'm like, I don't know if I could have done that.
Oh yes. No, as somebody who has gone through an undergrad program at University of California school,
yep.
It's not the same.
Yeah,
for sure. But because you're on quarter system and everything, but things go by really fast on the quarter system. But Cal Maritime is just its own beast. It is a whole nother thing. And if you get through, a program at Cal Maritime, it's
yeah.
Says a lot. It speaks volumes to what you're capable of.
No doubt. So one thing I want to touch on, in addition to obviously the required commercial crews for all licensed track students, you also were part of the WIN team. You had a grant with CSU Coast. So what got you involved with both of those kind of outside the traditional track? And then how did they enhance your engineering skills?
Okay. Well, the first one you mentioned was the WIN team. That's the annual competition, Department of Energy competition that the mechanical engineering team competes in. That they've incorporated some of the other programs now. That was actually the first time they did that, I believe, was the year that I was on the team,
okay.
18. And so now it's actually like a full school-wide.
Yeah, I actually just went to their like winter check-in meeting last week, and they have like a whole project development team now that's led by like global studies and business students.
Yeah, that was the first year they did that was 2018.
Okay, cool.
And so that was really, actually, I think they alternate every other year. They do a more in-depth one every other year. So yeah, I'm not sure if COVID kind of screwed with that schedule or not, but I know it definitely complicated some things for the team. But yeah, that actually was required for me as a mechanic engineer. It's an extracurricular thing for some of those other programs, but they may be incorporating the competition into those other departments as well now. But yeah, the reason I chose that competition, I guess, or that capstone project for my mechanical engineering degree was, it was pretty varied. There was a lot of reasons. It was, kind of cool to like work on a project that was a legacy project, and to like improve the design that had already been made. And we ended up winning the competition that year for the first time. And we had a super solid mechanical engineering team, and all of the other team members from other departments were amazing. And Tom Nordenholtz is just you couldn't ask for a better project advisor. He's incredible to work with. And yeah, we really, that was I think that was one of like the high points of my life. And I truly, like I said earlier, I wanted to leave the surf industry to try challenging myself. And that project really challenged us, and the payout was tremendous. And we really, with that win. So that was amazing. Shifting to the other project you mentioned, which is the CSU Coast grant that I received. I was working with Dr. Alexander,
Dr. Parker, Alexander Parker.
Parker. I always call him Alex. So sorry.
Two first names will get you.
Yeah, I know. So I was working with Dr. Parker and Dr. Sai from the mechanical department. On that project, they had a need. So long story short, there was a really old inorganic carbon analyzer instrument that the CSU system possesses, and it's used for, they take it on research vessels, and they use it in labs, oceanographic labs and stuff, and in order to evaluate how much dissolved carbon, inorganic carbon there is in the water specimens that they take. And the control system for that machine was very, very antiquated. And so they needed somebody with some mechanical and software programming skills to rewrite the software, control system software for that machine. And the Dr. Sai reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested. And I don't know what possessed me to say, yes, I was interested. I obviously did, but I don't know what possessed me to think that I had the time to do that.
I was going to say, you're so busy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was, in my senior year, while I was, I was a 3-year track also. So,
oh man.
So I still had senior crews after I finished. That senior year was just out of control. It was absolute mayhem. I don't know how I did it. But anyway, I somehow ended up doing this Coast Grant project as well, and did receive a small amount of money for it, at least from the grant. But yeah, got the machine working with new software.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. I guess this is going to kind of dovetail into maybe what you just said, or we're talking about, just thinking back, when you were at Cal Maritime, what were some things that you did or you would have done that you would kind of give advice to students now to do, and kind of thinking specifically to students that might be in your situation that came back to school for a post-baccalaureate program?
What I would do differently is probably try to maintain a bit more semblance of a normal life. Whether it be making sure I get out more on the weekends and, for outdoor activities or surfing or something. Because I think that it definitely takes a toll on your mind and your body if you're just grinding constantly. I think, that's my main thing. I don't have a great answer to that question, because I think that I already had, like I mentioned before, had a really good balance compared to a lot of people who were stuck on campus. So I mean, if I were on campus, I think that would have been even more critical to make sure I got out and did things and did activities that were away from my desk, because I at least could go home every day after classes and work in my private room, and we had a backyard and whatever. So, and I had my roommates that all went to Cal Maritime, and so we had a little social group in that sense outside of school. I think that was critical to helping me keep a bit of sanity in all of that. So I think that if you're on campus, that you really have to make that extra effort to make sure you keep that kind of non-academic, non-school portion of your life going.
Totally. And honestly, you are echoing what other alums that I've talked with have kind of said the same thing. And you can get so into just the grind of Cal Maritime that you forget to get out and give yourself some room to breathe and recharge, to make sure that you can keep grinding. Yeah, definitely. So kind of starting to transition out of college, but as a licensed track ME that ended up staying shoreside over sailing, what kind of factors, how did you make that decision? What factors kind of played a role in that?
The biggest factor was my boyfriend and our dog. So I met my boyfriend at Cal Maritime. He was also a mechanical licensed track graduate from 2017. And we, obviously had a lot in common. We both came from surfing families. So we ended up getting a dog together after my first year at Cal Maritime. And yeah, he ended up taking a shoreside job as well in the East Bay in Hayward. And so he stayed near Vallejo basically. And when I graduated a year later, it was kind of like, well, there's so much work here. I didn't want to be gone shipping for months at a time. I also had just finished a program in mechanical engineering and had never actually worked in it and wanted to give it a shot. That made sense to me, that why would I do this program, put all that time and effort into mechanical engineering and not at least give it a go. So that was my logic behind staying shoreside and going with mechanical engineering specifically. The experience I got sailing the 3 summers at Cal Maritime for the licensed track, already gave me a taste of what life at sea would be like, and mainly like what it's like to be gone for a couple months at a time. Which, that honestly didn't bother me that much. If I was single and didn't have an adorable dog at home, it would probably be a no-brainer to go sail for at least some period of time. But yeah, the commitments on land, the things I wanted to do here on shoreside were what kept me definitely here. But yeah, I actually am still very interested in the maritime side.
Nice. Do you feel, I guess, what made you decide to go licensed track as opposed to the unlicensed track? Or was it just like circumstances as you were in Cal Maritime kind of just changed a little bit of the focus that you thought when you were coming into school?
No, I actually honestly was considering doing the marine transportation program originally. But the enticement of doing, I did the math minor too, Cal Maritime.
You dove head in.
So yeah, I wanted to take those extra math classes at Cal Maritime. And so, I was just interested in the actual, engineering theory and stuff. So, why not do the mechanical program? Yeah, it was, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense to other people, but yeah, I'd put all that effort into all this math and was super excited about it. So I wanted to use it.
Yeah. I mean, that's with career choices and stuff like that. It's got to it makes sense for you first and foremost, and everybody else can understand in their own way or not. Sometimes they won't understand, but
yeah. So it's the nerd side of me, I guess. The other side of me is, I love wrenching on things. I love working with my hands. I love being, on the deck, operating cranes and winches and stuff like that. And, it's just, so working on a ship, in general, is something that I really, really enjoy. And yeah, it's at my current job as a mechanical engineer, I work on big mechanical spinning flywheels. So, these things weigh quite a few tons. The rotors themselves are over 5,000 pounds, let alone the housing that they're contained inside of. And, so there's a lot of big, heavy machinery. I still drive forklifts every week or so. And I'm still, working out in our machine shop, tooling around on stuff. So I definitely keep my hands dirty on purpose because, I like that side of engineering a lot.
Spoken like a true Cal Maritime grad on that one.
But that's why I chose that was why I chose the licensed track. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. But honestly, I mean, I talked, talking to a bunch of engineers here now, it's like, that is, I would say the main through line for all of you is the aspect of actually getting to turn wrenches, for lack of a better speak, compared to other engineering programs. So kind of, and you were already kind of getting into this, but just what you do at Amber Kinetics and then how your role has progressed over the last, 3-ish years.
So I am a mechanical engineer at Amber Kinetics, and my role has actually been pretty intense since I got here. This is a startup, energy startup company, and energy storage specifically.
Okay.
And basically we make giant mechanical batteries, flywheels. So we use a motor that takes electricity from either a grid or some renewable source like wind or solar, and you got to store it somewhere for later use. So we use that electricity to power the flywheel, spin it up, and then the flywheel with its inertial mass continues to spin and hold that energy in the form of kinetic energy. And later on, our specific product is a long-term energy storage flywheel. So about 4 hours later, you can discharge around high 90-ish% efficient return on what you put into it. There's a lot of mechanical systems involved in making the flywheel, functional, whether it's vacuum gas systems, or we also have like the magnetic bearing and control system, and we have the actual like structural housing and the rotor design itself. And I specifically work on the bearing systems, and I got thrown straight into that right away. As soon as I got here, within like a month of starting, I was handed some pretty like critical projects that I was like, whoa, you want to like deal with basically senior mechanical engineer tasks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There were some tripping points, stumbling points. I definitely like learned a lot of lessons about taking things for granted. It's something you just have to, I think, experience. I mean, there's just no substitute for putting the time in and making mistakes and learning from them. You could sit and ask questions from someone and get advice all you want all day long and try and make the smartest decisions you possibly can as a newcomer. But there's just like, you need to make those mistakes. Like it's part of the process of becoming a skilled engineer, specifically design and engineer. And so, I was really thrown into the deep end, so to speak. So, I am now, quote unquote, the bearing expert at our company. And yet I would say that I know very little about bearings because it's all very self-taught and consulting with, actual bearing application engineers, bearing professionals at our supplier companies, and learning from them. And so it's been really interesting and difficult at times, but it is really cool to really specialize in like one really specific mechanical system. I think that what I've learned here has been incredibly invaluable. Nice.
And one thing I always feel like myself and tell students is sometimes the more you learn about things, the more you realize that you don't know. And it's like, okay, I just added one part of knowledge, and then it's like, and it opens the doors to 5 other ones that it's like, okay, got to keep going. So.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's a name for that phenomenon. I don't remember what it's called right off the top of my head, but yeah, that is 100% true. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every time I would learn something new, think I knew something about an aspect of a bearing, I would learn something new and then have 4,000 more questions. Yep. Like, wow, I really didn't know that.
No doubt. So then what, Mike, so that was great. So you got thrown into the fire. So what skills did Cal Maritime teach you that you were able to utilize? And then, what are some things that you had to learn? And then just like overall with your work history and transferring into mechanical engineering, what skills kind of helped you through journalism and bouncing around, from job to job at certain points and stuff like that?
Being able to wear a lot of hats, definitely. Like my experience in wearing a lot of hats was very useful in all of the hat wearing that I had to do. here at Amber Kinetics, because as I think I mentioned earlier, it's a startup. So, it's kind of a Bay Area thing where we're pretty small and people have to do a lot of different functions, and it keeps you on your toes. So that's one thing that I definitely gained at Cal Maritime was a diversity of different skills, and being able to work cross-functionally with a lot of different programs at Cal Maritime and departments here at the company. Like, for example, that wind turbine program that we were talking about earlier, when I had to work with all of the different departments, different teams, sub teams of our Cal Maritime team, was, totally applied to what I do on a daily basis here in the professional role.
Nice. And then for, again, kind of thinking about cadets that are like you and kind of switch careers, return to school, so on and so forth, what advice would you have for them then going through an interview process and being able to kind of articulate how your past work history is going to help you in this new field that you're entering?
I think that just emphasizing, the fact that you have experience in a broad range of whether it's skills or life experiences, is something that a lot of employers are happy to hear. And so giving that background to someone in an interview is almost invariably going to help you. I don't know if I said that right, but almost certainly only going to help you. It probably will not hurt your chances to talk about things that differ from what you're pursuing. Because I've interviewed a ton of people since I've been here at Amber Kinetics for various roles, not just for the mechanical team, but for manufacturing engineers and project managers and, electrical engineers, all kinds of stuff. And when those people can talk about things that are outside of their really specific field of study, it shows, it definitely reflects the capability of that person to work with other departments. And that's super important in the professional, sphere. You don't want people necessarily who are hyper-focused on just their bearing system, for example.
Yeah.
You got to be able to explain that bearing system to people who aren't mechanically inclined, for example, to software engineers and stuff like that. So that's just one example, but you get my point. Yeah. So I think that emphasizing any non-career specific experiences or background that you have in an interview process, for example, is definitely a bonus.
Nice. That actually, it reminds me of this book that I read called Range by David Epstein. And it was talking about how generalists thrive in a specialized world, which we're moving more and more into, and how there was some studies that the teams that work the best, especially in like scientific research and stuff, actually had people from a bunch of different areas of expertise, and they were able to answer questions even outside of their field because they're just bringing a different perspective to the question. And so a hyper-focused person might not see the forest, and they're always focused on the trees, and how that's really helped people, especially with like career transition and stuff.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic that I actually haven't read about at all. But
if you want, Rain, it's actually a pretty good book, easy read. But it was and then something that I just try and utilize in my job now and helping students kind of make those connections. Cause I think of it as like, students will always say, I don't have any like experience in mechanical engineering yet as a 20-year-old sophomore. And I'm like, they don't care. Just talk about projects or, your on-campus job or whatever it may be, and articulate that stuff.
Hobbies.
Yeah, exactly. Hobbies, all that kind of stuff. So it's great to hear that from you as well. What would be maybe like one skill if somebody wanted to kind of get into energy storage and kind of the work that you've been doing, what would be like maybe one skill you'd be like, make sure that you have this, and whether it be a technical skill or a transferable skill?
I think that the biggest skill is actually not technical. The most useful skill that I have adopted since I've been here, and I say adopted because I kind of didn't really utilize this skill initially, and I had to kind of like force myself to do it, is to basically, when you have a question, persevere for a while trying to figure it out on your own. Like that's that skill of just having a little bit of dedication to do a little bit of research yourself and try and answer your own questions, is so invaluable to making you successful as a mechanical engineer. And in anything, really, like ultimately, I think that transfers to any pursuit you might have in the world. You'd be surprised by what you can actually figure out on your own. And it's challenging. It can be hard. And sometimes you really end up banging your head against the wall for a while. But at that point, I think that you've done your due diligence and it's time to just ask for help.
Yeah.
And also, this isn't to say like, don't ask for help. Like that's not what I'm saying at all, because I think that's a terrible idea to not.
Yeah.
But you do need to let people know, just be honest with yourself. Like, can I figure this out on my own? Is this something that might be on the internet? Is this something that might be on some other resource? Like, has somebody mentioned this before? Maybe like, where can I maybe find this in our internal resources? Like, okay, yeah, it's one of those things. I'm going to try and figure it out myself first instead of asking. If it's something where it's just like, I don't have no idea where to even start. Yeah, please ask somebody like that. Absolutely. But I think the way you frame your question is super critical too. And that's another skill that's really important, I think, is like not just being like, I have no idea, help me. Like posing it as like, hey, I really can't figure out where to start with this question or figuring out an answer to this problem. Like, do you mind giving me any like kind of pointers or like leads on like where to start looking? And often like people are much more responsive to that kind of question than just like, I have no idea.
Tell me. Yeah. And I think actually that kind of dovetails with what you talked about at the beginning of, you don't really know until you actually like start doing, and how doing is such a valuable process.
Yeah.
If you just go and ask somebody whenever you have a question where to go, as opposed to embarking on your own, you're not, the knowledge doesn't just seep in the same type of way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of incidental learning that when you go and try and figure things out on your own for a bit before, resorting to just, being like, I give up.
Yeah, definitely. And so getting to the close, but I know you talked before we hopped on the recorded call, you said you're transitioning out of Amber Kinetics. Do you want to share anything about kind of what the next step for you in your career is?
Yeah. So tomorrow is my last day with Amber Kinetics. I wanted to get away from the desk, basically. I put all this time into, studying and learning the last, oh my gosh, it's been so many years now, with the classes I took before Cal Maritime, and then the 3 years at Cal Maritime, and now almost 3 years at Amber Kinetics. I've been learning and being almost entirely sitting at a desk, except for my time at Cal Maritime when I was sailing. And I honestly just really enjoy working with my hands, and with, like I mentioned way earlier in our interview, how I wanted to do a master's of social welfare originally, because I really enjoy helping people and working with them. And and I'm energized by that. And, sitting at a desk, has its benefits in some ways. Like, it's nice. I can work from home at times and make my own schedule. I have a lot of flexibility here at my job, but ultimately I think that I gave mechanical engineering a good chance and learned a lot and satisfied myself with what I was able to do. And I'm going back to a career in working in the maritime related industry. I'll be starting at the Pillar Point Harbor Patrol up here in the area. This in Half Moon Bay at the beginning of the new year. So getting to utilize my my boat skills again. One of the biggest things that Harbor Patrol does is maintain all of the harbor facilities. So there's a lot of facilities engineering involved in that, and electrical engineering, not electrical engineering, but like electrician type stuff, as well as maintaining the vessels that they operate. And they're, that definitely is going to draw on my all the systems and plant ops. That's the name of the class.
Yep.
Sorry, I was trying to remember. All my plant ops courses at Cal Maritime, and of course all the watch rotations.
Yep.
Everything else that we did while sailing is all going to be very applicable to the new job, and I get to work with people. So
cool.
Very
cool. Congratulations. It looks like you've been able to kind of meld all of your different interests to be fulfilled for sure.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing that really ties the bow on top to tying everything together that I have done and do in my life is that Pillar Point is most notably known in the surf industry as the location where everyone launches their watercraft for surfing Mavericks. Is one of the most famous big wave surf spots in the world. And so Harbor Patrol naturally does, when there's a giant swell and there's a lot of people out in the water there, that can get really crowded out at Mavericks. There's a lot of jet skis and boats motoring around in some really critical situations out there with very large swells. It is a big safety hazard essentially for a lot of people. There's a lot that could go wrong and a lot that does go wrong on occasion. And so Harbor Patrol is there helping out with whatever is needed during those swells. So I'm getting to bring certain.
Okay. Cool. That's all. I mean, that's awesome. That's, I think, what we all kind of chase in life is how do I match everything with working, because we do that so often. So awesome. That's great. Well, then that's all I have. Any last closing thoughts or advice from your wealth of experience?
I guess, not to sound cliche, but stick with it. That's the hardest thing I think that people come across at Cal Maritime is like, wow, like, can I, like, you really start to question like quality, like, what am I doing? Like, but ultimately 5 years at Cal Maritime is, in the big picture of your life, is just a couple years. It goes by so fast. In retrospect, you look back at it and you're like, oh my gosh, where did that time go? I can't believe, like, it's already been as long since I graduated when I spent the time I spent at the school. So I think that's the biggest thing is just persistence and making sure that you get through something.
Hey, cliches are
I've
cliches.
changed so many times.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, yeah, thanks. Thanks. I mean, thanks for being able to fit us a little bit into your schedule today. Again, congratulations and good luck on your next endeavor. And anyone listening, if you want to connect with Darlene, you can connect on LinkedIn. Don't worry if she doesn't get back to you right away. She will get back to you. I have experience with it. But that would be the best way to contact her and kind of see what the next step holds for her. But again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan.